Welcome to Balanced But Barely, a podcast for anyone who looks like they have it all together, but internally has about 47 tabs open in their mind. I'm CarlaJean Lundgren, and each episode we talk real-life stress, anxiety, and self-regulation in a way that actually makes sense. You'll walk away with practical tools to feel calmer, think clear, and create more balance without needing to hide underneath your weighted blanket by 2 p.m. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." I don't know about you, but that quote feels a little rude because it suggests that maybe, just maybe, the thing that's been holding me back isn't bad luck or lack of motivation or Mercury being in retrograde. It's me. Well, not exactly me. My unconscious mind, actually. That's both terrifying and incredibly hopeful. Because if my brain learned these patterns, maybe it can learn new ones too. All right, you guys, my balance but barely moment for the week isn't mine. But it's something that I witnessed through my partner. Yeah, I couldn't think of a better one, you guys. This week was kind of chill. So, we're going to go with this one. So my partner and I are very complementary opposites, if that makes sense. He struggles with procrastination, which he openly admits, and would love to wave a magic wand to save himself from this trait. I, on the other hand, take care of things right away and have a strategic plan on how to get multiple things done throughout each week. I used to push him to get his things done on my timeline or just on a timeline in general. Anything that I was comfortable with, really, because, I was making it about me. But that would just cause him to get defensive and feel judged, which I totally don't blame him. And then I would feel frustrated and unheard. But in the 7 years we've been together, we've learned to honor each other's process, and we have vowed over and over, as a reminder, to never try and change one another. So this week, he was able to finish a project that only took him a few hours, but it had been lingering over his head for about 3 weeks. I have actually heard an update on this project every day for the past few weeks with no tangible progress to actually seeing it being done. But, the supportive partner, you listen and you encourage without fixing. So anyways, when he finally announced that it was finished, I was really happy for him because I knew that he was going to be relieved. However, I also knew that this project probably could have been done in a week instead of the 3 weeks that it took if he had really put his feet to the fire. So he comes into the house and he's all excited and he says to me, "Since you have decades of therapy under your belt, can you please tell me why I always procrastinate when I know how good this feels to have something finished?" I smiled and I took a beat to make sure he wasn't joking when he asked me for my opinion, because he knows the rule. If you ask me for my opinion, buckle up because it might not be what you want to hear. So I paused and I waited. It seemed that he was serious. So my response to him was, "Well, from what I've been told, people tend to procrastinate because they need that sense of urgency to motivate them to take action. Or they like the rush to get it done right before it's, too late or you've passed the deadline. So they wait until the last possible moment to get it done." I think for you, it's the first one. When you have someone depending on you to do something, you do it. And when you have to be accountable, like when you're at work, you get it done in a timely manner. But if it's something for yourself and there is no perceived consequence for putting it off, you sit on it for as long as possible. But the fact is, there is a consequence to that. You start stacking up tasks that need to get done, and you have this constant pressure of needing to start any one of them, or maybe you've started them all, but you haven't even taken the step 2 or step 3 or even finished one of them. And then you beat yourself up. I've watched you do it, and you feel shitty about yourself. You feel stressed, even though you are distracting yourself with YouTube. Let's just be real. And so then when you finally complete the task, all that negative talk and all that stress goes away. So yeah, it feels good to get something off of your to-do list because you also feel the weight lifted from all the stress, and that feels really, really good. I think it's that feeling that you like. Although doing a task right away is satisfying, it doesn't provide that compounded sense of relief that I think that you've just become really accustomed to. And then I stopped. There was silence for about 10 seconds, which is totally normal for him. I typically end up counting to 10 after I've made a statement or asked a question to him before I then follow up with a, did you hear me? Or are you ignoring me? Because sometimes he doesn't hear me and sometimes he is ignoring me, but most of the time he just needs those seconds to process before he responds, which I actually really appreciate. It's just something different that I had to learn to live with. So about 10 seconds goes by and then he looks at me and smiles and says, you might be onto something. And then he walks away. Those of you who know him are not going to be surprised. You can actually visually see him doing that. So my question to you is, does this sound familiar? Do you have 20 things you need to get done? You start them all, but you don't finish any of them? Because at some point you stop to go get something and then you decide you need to open your email real quick, but 45 minutes later you close your email because now you've decided that you need to organize the drawer that you're standing in front of instead, because that's where you needed to go get the scissors, and now the scissors aren't there and you can't find them because it's disorganized, and if it was organized then you could find the scissors. So let's just talk about organizing the drawer real quick. So you research, you go on back on your laptop, you research your phone and you research, drawer organizers, you read all the reviews, then eventually you have to watch 3 YouTube videos comparing those drawer organizers. Finally, you forget why you opened YouTube in the first place, and somehow now you're watching a golden retriever learning how to surf. Meanwhile, the thing you actually needed to do still isn't done. And might I also point out, you still haven't chosen a drawer organizer or found the scissors. If overthinking and not completing any one task burned calories, we would all be ripped, like Marvel superhero ripped. We'd have abs that you could grate cheese on. But instead, we are all just mentally tired, right? Am I wrong? I'll wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I won't count to 10. But let me ask you, am I onto something? Here's what I know about the people who are listening today. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are not lacking ambition. You're probably one of the hardest working people everyone knows. You're the dependable one. You're responsible. You're capable. You're the one that everyone calls when something goes wrong. And side note, for the record, this is exactly how my partner is as well. And yet there's a part of your life that still feels frozen. Maybe it's starting a business, leaving a relationship, applying for the job, going back to school, cleaning the garage, maybe calling that therapist, taking care of your health. Just like go for a freaking walk already. Maybe it's writing the book, having that hard conversation, booking the trip. You know what needs to happen. You've read the books, you've saved the podcast, you bought the planner, you downloaded the app, maybe even got the outfit to go with whatever it is that you need to be getting done. And you probably even color coded the planner. Let's just be real. But still you're stuck. And because you're stuck, you've started telling yourself a story. I'm lazy. I have no discipline. I'm the worst. Something must be wrong with me. And no wonder why I feel this way. No wonder why I feel behind. No wonder why everyone else is further along than me. Friend, let me tell you something. None of this is true. What if your brain is doing exactly what it's designed to do, to protect you? Because here's something most of us don't even think about. Your brain has one primary job. It's not happiness. It's not success. It's not confidence. It's safety. It is constantly asking one question. Am I safe? Not, am I fulfilled? And certainly not, am I becoming the person I want to be? Just, am I safe? And sometimes the safest thing your brain knows is staying exactly where you are at. Today, we're going to unpack why that is, why that happens. We're going to look at the neuroscience of feeling stuck, how anxiety and chronic stress affect decision-making, why perfectionism keeps us spinning our wheels, and most importantly, how to begin moving forward without forcing, shaming, or overwhelming yourself. Because here's my promise. By the end of this episode, I don't necessarily want you to feel motivated, because motivation comes and goes. I want you to feel understood, because when we understand what's happening, we stop making ourselves the enemy. All right, Let's get into it. Let's start with something that completely changed the way I look at motivation. Are you ready? Your brain doesn't love change. Shocking, right? Are we shocked? No, we're not shocked. It loves familiarity. It loves it when things stay the same. It loves the familiar. It loves knowing what to expect. Even when that sameness, that same place, that familiar place, even when it hurts. Think about that for 1 second. Your brain would often rather choose a familiar misery than an unfamiliar possibility. Not because it's broken, because it's efficient. Because for thousands of years, survival depended on recognizing patterns. If something unfamiliar appeared, your brain assumed it could be dangerous. That wiring kept our ancestors alive. Unfortunately, our brains don't always distinguish between saber-toothed tiger and sending an email. To your nervous system, asking for a raise, starting therapy, ending a toxic relationship, launching a business, or walking into a yoga class for the first time, they all register as threats, equal threats, not because they're dangerous, but because they are unfamiliar. That's why you're going to hear people say, or you have heard people say, I don't know why I keep sabotaging myself. I actually don't think most people are sabotaging themselves. I think they're protecting themselves. Does that, think about that. Does that change the way you filter certain situations with yourself or with friends or family? If you looked at a certain situation, instead of thinking, God, why do they keep doing that? Why do they keep doing the same thing over and over? They know what they need to do, but they keep doing the same thing. They're sabotaging themselves. Would it change the way you felt about yourself or even about the other person if instead of that thinking you thought, wow, they are protecting themselves. They don't know another way. They don't know how to tell their nervous system that they're safe. This is their body's automatic response to just stay with the same old, even though that person, or maybe that person is you, wants to change. And that's a huge difference. Protection comes from fear, and sabotage implies intention. And I don't think that we are intending to sabotage ourselves. I really honestly think that it's this natural survival of the fittest instinct that we have embedded in us. Because most of us aren't trying to ruin our lives. We're trying to avoid pain, even if it means postponing joy. That's a heartbreaking trade. And it's one so many of us are making without even realizing it. Here's another fascinating thing. Your nervous system does not respond to logic. It responds to experience. You can tell yourself this interview isn't scary. Doing a podcast isn't scary. The hell it isn't, first of all. Second of all, you can tell yourself that. You can say, let's just use the interview as an example. This interview isn't scary. But if your body has learned that rejection equals danger, your heart rate still goes up, your palms still sweat, your stomach still tightens, and your body says, I've seen something like this before and I don't like how it ended. That's why affirmations alone don't always work. You can't bully your nervous system into feeling safe. You build safety, one experience at a time. This is why so many high-achieving people get frustrated. They think, I know better, so why can't I do better? Because knowledge lives in your thinking brain, safety lives in your nervous system. And healing happens when those two finally start working together. All right, let's try something together. If you're driving, remember, you keep your eyes on the road. I say this every time. I'm so terrified you're going to like those people who blindly followed GPS in their car when it first came out, before they had to put that warning sign on there that says basically like, use your best judgment. If it says go straight and there's a lake in front of you, don't go straight. So don't close your eyes if you're driving. All right, everyone else, if it feels comfortable, soften your gaze and close your eyes. And take a slow breath in through your nose and let it out gently through your mouth. Let's do that again. Slow breath in through your nose and gently out through your mouth. Now bring to mind one area of your life where you feel stuck. You're not trying to solve it right now. Just notice it. And as you think about it, ask yourself, what emotion comes up first? And you can say it out loud if you need to. Where do I feel that in my body? What am I afraid might happen if I move forward? And what am I afraid might happen if I stay exactly where I am? Take one more slow breath in. And as you exhale, remember this. Do not judge your answers. You just notice them. Awareness is the first move. And sometimes before we can take a step forward, we have to stop arguing with where we are. Years ago, I had a friend tell me that she was disappointed in me because I was being lazy and laying around binging Netflix all day when there were things that she needed me to help her with. Obviously, this was pre-COVID and pre-pandemic, because now lounging around and binging streaming services all day is just like, a way of life. But this was pre-pandemic. And so you're definitely going to need some context for this one. So my friend had hired me to help her with certain parts of her business, and she gave me a deadline. We had at that time been friends for many years, and we had never mixed business with friendship. We both very much strong entrepreneur type mindsets, both alpha females, but never mixed our friendship with business up until this point. So that meant that she knew all of my habits, good and bad, and she knew all the things I didn't like about myself, which is the context you need for this story. So during this time, it was one of the darker times in my life where I barely had enough energy to run my business and smile for anyone that was outside my front door. The minute I got home, I crashed. The bra came off, the junk food came out, along with the bottle of wine or two, camping out on the couch for the rest of the evening, and yes, with Netflix on. This was my pattern of recharging so that I could do it all over the next day. Before I became the rock star healthy version of myself that you hear today. God, I miss those days. Just kidding. I mean, kidding, not kidding. And I've been doing this healing work for so long. Sometimes I long for the days before I took that blue pill, like in the Matrix, right? It's like, are you going to take the pill? Because once you take it, you can't unsee it. And so, yes, I miss the days of my ignorance of, the cost in which what things were going to cost me to lay around and not get anything done. So anyways, that was a side rant. So going back to this story with my friend. Now, keep in mind, when she said this to me, when she said that I was being lazy because I was laying around and watching Netflix every night and not working on this project that she had hired me to work on, I hadn't missed the deadline yet. Like, I still had time to get this done. She just assumed, knowing what she knew about my habits and my schedule, that I wasn't going to come through for her. Now, spoiler alert, I did come through on time, just not how she wanted me to. I delivered the service that she paid for, finishing it the night before it was due, but whatevs. And I was fully panicked and in a fully adrenaline fueled state. Now, I can't remember if we ever worked together again after that. I know we had worked together a few times, and I can't remember if this time was the last time or preceded. I honestly, it was so long ago, I don't remember. But that comment felt like she just shone like a bright spotlight on the deepest, darkest shame corner that I only let my closest peeps know about. I felt like she weaponized my shame against me in an effort to motivate me. Now, keep in mind, I didn't have this language to use or clarity to use at the time. I just felt shitty. Like, she said it, I felt shitty, I was irritated, I was pissed, and I didn't like it. That's all I knew. What I also didn't know was that my nervous system was not ready to do anything different than what I had already done my whole life. My nervous system was still in protection mode. So instead of taking that comment as an invitation to change my behavior, it only pushed me deeper into my dark shame corner, and it made me not trust her anymore. After a decade of therapy, I now have the tools to help me make better choices and to stay focused, to help me avoid ever being stuck in that shame corner again. And as you can tell, it also helped me with language to describe exactly what was happening. And in case you're wondering, no, I am not friends with that person any longer, but there were other reasons for that. But I am very thankful for her being a mirror for me at that time. And although I didn't like seeing myself in that way, and she did irritate me with her comment, I know that I'm a better person now because of it. So this episode's going to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to sprinkle in the resources as we go before we move on to my next point. So here I want to give you 3 resources: a book, an app, and a documentary. The book is called Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. This book explores the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset and shows how our beliefs about our abilities influence our willingness to embrace challenge and change. The app you should check out is called How We Feel. Now, this app helps you identify and track your emotions, making it easier to recognize patterns and build emotional awareness. And it's the first important step in getting unstuck. And now the documentary is called Stutz. In this documentary, psychiatrist Phil Stutz shares practical tools for overcoming fear, resistance, and life's inevitable obstacles in a refreshing and honest way. I'm going to list these in the show notes on CarlaJean143.com as well. So don't panic. You do have an opportunity to find them after the episode as well. I'm about to say something that might make you want to pause this episode. Not because it's offensive, but because it might hit a little too close to home. Sometimes we stay stuck because we're getting something from it. Do I need to pause here for dramatic effect? Sometimes we stay stuck because we're getting something from it. I know nobody wakes up and says, you know what sounds fun today? Emotional paralysis. That's not what I mean, you guys. I mean that sometimes staying exactly where we are protects us from something that feels even scarier. Think about it. If you never apply for the promotion, you never have the risk of hearing no. If you never start the business, you never have to wonder if you would have failed. If you never have that difficult conversation, you don't have to risk conflict. If you don't put yourself out there, no one can reject the real you. Staying stuck has a job, and its job is protection. The problem is, what once protected you may now be preventing you from becoming the person you're meant to be. We tend to imagine fear as panic. Sweaty palms, racing heart, running away, but more often fear sounds like this. I'll start Monday. I just need a little more time. I need to do more research before this can happen. I'm waiting until things calm down. I'll just do it when I feel more confident. Can I lovingly call us out for a second? Some of us have been, quote unquote, researching the same decision for years. We don't need another podcast. We don't need, well, yes, you do. You need this podcast, but you know what I mean. We don't need another planner. We don't need another YouTube video titled 5 Morning Habits for Highly Successful People. Although if you do find one that folds laundry for me, send me the link because isn't folding laundry the worst? Okay. Anyway, sometimes information becomes procrastination wearing a graduation cap. It looks productive, it looks and feels responsible, but it's still keeping us from taking action. All right, now let's talk about perfection, because perfection has one of the greatest hype crews I've ever seen. People say things like this: I'm just a perfectionist, almost like it's a badge of honor. But perfectionism isn't excellence, it's fear. It's fear of getting it wrong, fear of being judged, fear of not being enough, fear of proving the stories you've secretly believed about yourself. Research from Brené Brown reminds us that perfectionism isn't about striving for our best. It's about trying to earn worthiness by avoiding mistakes, criticism, or failure. Think about that. If I can just get everything right, then maybe I'll finally feel enough. Except the finish line keeps moving because perfectionism was never the goal. Safety was. Here's something we do not talk about enough. Sometimes we're not afraid of failing. We are actually afraid of succeeding. Now hear me out. Success changes things. It brings responsibility, visibility, expectations, more decisions, more people watching you, more opportunities to disappoint people. If you've spent your life trying to stay small to keep the peace, success can actually feel very threatening. Your nervous system might be thinking, if I become too successful, people won't like me anymore. Or if I become confident, people will think that I've changed. If I stop people pleasing, who will I even be? No wonder why we're stuck. Your future self feels unfamiliar. Your nervous system is still trying to keep you connected to the version of you that survived. One of the biggest reasons change feels so difficult is because identity always wins. If you believe, I'm just bad with money, your brain will notice evidence that supports that belief. If you believe, I am always overwhelmed, your mind becomes incredibly good at proving you right. If you believe, I'm not disciplined, guess what? You'll subconsciously make choices that reinforce that identity. Not because you want to, but because your brain loves consistency, even when consistency is painful. This is why we've talked so much in previous episodes about self-talk, ahimsa, which means nonviolence, and patience. Every one of those conversations have been preparing us for this moment. The words you repeat become the identity you defend. The identity you defend becomes the life you repeat. But here's the beautiful news, you guys. Identities aren't life sentences. They're stories, and stories can be rewritten. Let's pause for a moment, find a comfortable position, take a slow breath in, and let it go. Let's do that again. Slow breath in and let it go. This time, imagine yourself 1 year from today. Not a perfect version of you, but a peaceful version. One who has taken small, consistent steps. One who trusts themselves a little more. One who isn't waiting to feel fearless before taking action. Notice how they stand, how they breathe, how they speak to themselves, and now ask them one question. What do you wish I would stop waiting for? And listen. Don't force an answer, just notice what comes up. And now ask them, what's one small step you took that changed everything? Take one more slow breath in. And remember, the future version of you isn't waiting for perfection. They're simply waiting for you to begin. Ugh, I really hate sharing this story. But we're all friends here, right? No judgment, safe space, and all that, right? Well, I have been divorced twice, and it's a club that I never thought I would be a part of, but here I am. So to make a very long, tragic story a little less long and a little less tragic, my second husband and I experienced a very traumatic hiking accident that resulted in him having a traumatic brain injury and some physical limitations. At the time of the accident, we were only engaged. I was convinced that he was going to make a full recovery. Like, I couldn't let myself think otherwise, just so I could get through what we were dealing with. And I really thought he was going to be the same person that he was before the accident. But that's so naive. How naive was I? Even if he did heal from all of his injuries, neither of us were ever going to be the same again after what we went through. So a couple years after the accident, we were struggling to communicate and support each other in the way either of us needed. So we started couples counseling, and for the next 18 months, we met with a professional every week. Each week, it felt like one step forward and 3 steps back. His brain injury had damaged his ability to process emotion, and his personality was different. I was neck deep in post-traumatic stress disorder with absolutely no understanding what that meant or what I needed. All I knew was that I was unhappy, stressed, scared, and sad all the time. I was tired and I wanted out of the relationship, but was mortified at the idea of being a twice divorced woman. So I stayed longer than I should have, which delayed my healing and his. I was so worried about what other people would think about me being divorced twice and divorcing someone with a traumatic brain injury that I felt like I was abandoning him, but I knew that if I stayed, I was abandoning myself. Fast forward, we did end up divorcing, and I think I can honestly say that we are both better off because of it. All right, I have a couple more resources for you guys. The first one is a book called The Mountain Is You. It's by Brianna Weist. It's a powerful book that explores self-sabotage through the lens of emotional intelligence and personal growth. It helps readers like us understand that what looks like resilience is often unsolved fear or unmet emotional needs. The second resource is the app Finch. So if you've ever felt overwhelmed by giant goals, Finch helps you build momentum through tiny, achievable daily actions while encouraging self-compassion instead of perfection. And lastly, the movie The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Now, I know most of us have probably seen this. It is such a good movie. But for those of you who haven't, please watch it. It's called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Mitty. And again, all of this information will be in the show notes at CarlaJean143.com. So don't be like scrambling to get a piece of paper and a pen to write these down. This movie, at first glance, it looks like an adventure movie, but underneath, it's a story about fear, comfort zones, taking risks, and discovering that life doesn't begin when you stop being afraid. It begins when you decide fear doesn't get the final vote. All right, I want you to remember something. Feeling stuck doesn't mean you're incapable. It doesn't mean you're behind, and it certainly does not mean that you've missed your chance. More often than not, it means your nervous system has been trying to protect you with strategies that no longer serve you. But here's the good news. Protection and progress don't have to compete. You can create enough safety to take the next step, and that's exactly where we're heading next. If you've ever waited until you felt motivated, how is that working for you? Yeah, same Z's. One of the biggest lies we've been told is that motivation comes first. That one day we'll just wake up, stretch dramatically like we're in a toothpaste commercial, and the sun will shine through the window, the birds will start singing, and suddenly we'll feel inspired to tackle our lives. I've been waiting for this my whole life. I have desperately always wanted to be one of those people that wake up first thing in the morning and work out. And I know there are some of you out there that do this, and I wish I was you. I have tried so hard to be motivated to work out in the morning. Honestly, the only things that ever get me up early to do that is if I'm at a yoga retreat or if I'm hiking with friends, but do it on my own, never. Anyways, neither here nor there. That motivation has never arrived for me. Yeah. And the whole like laying out the clothes on your bed the night before, that doesn't work either. I just kick them off my bed. Or sleeping in your workout clothes. I will just sleep right through the alarm in my workout clothes. But anyways. Neither here nor there, guys. Rant. All right. Spoiler alert, y'all. That's not usually how this works. I just explained that. Motivation doesn't just kick in and I bounce out of bed at 4 a.m. and like hit the gym. Motivation is a terrible leader. Action comes first, then confidence, then motivation. Think about learning to ride a bike. You didn't become confident and then get on the bike. You got on the bike, you wobbled, possibly crashed into a bush, maybe you cried a little, and eventually your brain realized, oh, we're not dying. Okay. Then confidence showed up. And the same is true for nearly every meaningful change in your life. One thing that I hear all the time is, I just need to get my life together. And honestly, I say this to myself. If I'm struggling with something, I will talk to myself, as many brilliant, healthy people do. And I will say, CarlaJean, get your life together. But let me tell you, friend, getting your life together, it's an impossible goal. Your life isn't just one thing. Your life is 100 tiny things. And the beautiful news is that means you don't have to fix everything. You only have to improve one thing, one small thing. That's where the 4 pillars of wellness become so helpful. Instead of asking, how do I fix my life? Ask, which pillar needs my attention today? Let's walk through the pillars together. So first, mental wellness. Ask yourself, what thought have I been rehearsing that's keeping me stuck? Maybe it's, I'm too old, I missed my chance, I've always been this way, I'm not disciplined. Now ask yourself something even more powerful. Is this a fact? Or is it a familiar story? Those are 2 very different things. Your thoughts are not courtroom evidence. They're old survival strategies. Mental wellness isn't about positive thinking. It's about accurate thinking. It's replacing shame with curiosity. So instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask what happened that taught me to believe this. That single question can unlock years of compassion. The second pillar of wellness, physical wellness. So let's check in with your body. When was the last time you drank some water? Now, I personally love water. I drink water all day long. I would be the saddest person in the world if I did not have water. But I know not everyone is like that. So, when is the last time you drank water? Seriously, I'll wait. Okay. Our bodies are incredible communicators. The problem is, most of us don't listen until they're yelling at us. Feeling stuck isn't just mental. Sometimes your nervous system is exhausted. You're sleep deprived, you're living on caffeine, you're eating lunch at 3 because you've been taking care of everyone else, you've been sitting for 10 hours, your shoulders are somewhere up near your ears, and then you wonder why you can't think clearly. Your body isn't working against you, it's asking for support. Sometimes the most productive thing you can do is take a 10-minute walk, drink some water, stretch your body, pause and take 3 deep breaths. Simply just go outside, get some fresh air. Those don't sound life-changing, right? But they'll change the chemistry your brain is working with, and that's where momentum begins. Third pillar of wellness, spiritual wellness. Now, before anyone panics, when I say spiritual wellness, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about connection, purpose, values, meaning. The part of you that quietly asks, is this the life I actually want? Sometimes we feel stuck because we're climbing the wrong mountain. We've been chasing someone else's definition of success. We're working towards goals that we don't even want, trying to impress people whose opinions don't actually matter. No wonder why we're exhausted. Ask yourself, what matters most to me? Not your parents, not social media, not your neighbors, you. If nobody clapped, if nobody posted about it, if nobody even knew, what kind of life would you still want to build? That's where purpose lives. The fourth pillar of wellness, financial wellness, money. Let's talk about it because it stresses me the F out sometimes, and I'm sure it stresses you out. It stresses almost everybody out. One thing I've learned over the years is that financial wellness isn't about how much money you make. It's about the relationship you have with money. Some people make 6 figures and feel broke. I am going to tell you a little personal side note here. I actually just left my 6-figure job that I worked really hard to get. I went back to school and got my master's in order to get that job. And I left it to fulfill my purpose, which is this lifestyle wellness brand, this serving others with the knowledge, experience, and tools that I have gathered throughout the years. And I'm currently making a lot less than 6 figures. But when I was making 6 figures, it didn't bring me peace. I was still stressed out. I was still living paycheck to paycheck. Now that I am following my purpose and leading with my heart here on this venture, every dollar that I earn and every dollar that I spend is intentional because it's not promised. It's not promised, guys. I could be without many dollars here in the near future. We shall see. No, I'm not. I'm manifesting more. But yeah, it doesn't bring you peace just because you make 6 figures. You could still feel broke. Others have very little and they feel very peaceful. Why? Because peace comes from clarity, not just income. If money has been a source of shame for you, please hear this. Shame has never balanced a budget. Shame has never increased a savings account. And shame has never taught anyone how to manage money. Awareness does. Small decisions do. Tiny habits do. Every financial life begins with one honest look at reality. Not judgment, just honesty. I think one of the biggest reasons we stay stuck is because we keep asking ourselves, what's the biggest thing I can do? Instead, ask, what's the smallest thing I can finish? Is it just sending one email? Taking one walk, schedule that one appointment, read the one page, fold one basket of laundry, not all 6, just one. Tiny wins teach your brain something incredibly important, that you can trust yourself. And once trust begins to grow, momentum follows. Let's finish with one more mindfulness practice. Take a slow breath in and let it all out. Again, deep breath in And out. Imagine standing at the bottom of a staircase. The top disappears into the clouds, and you can't see the end. But you don't need to. Just notice the first step, just the first one, and ask yourself, what is the next right thing? Not the biggest thing and not the hardest thing, the next thing. Now imagine yourself taking that step. Notice how it feels. Take another breath in. One step. That's all today requires, because every meaningful journey you've ever taken began exactly the same way, with one step. At the time of my second divorce, I had zero income. I had given up everything to be his full-time caregiver. I gave up my career, I gave up my home and my friends. I moved several states away with my son to live where he wanted to live and where he had the most support. And my son's father at the time had fallen behind on child support, so I didn't even have child support coming in. I had given up my support system and my ability to support myself, all in the hopes of a happily ever after. So when I wanted to leave, I felt stuck. How was I supposed to support myself, move home, get a job, and answer a million questions that my friends and family were going to have? This caused more stress and more sadness. I literally cried every single day. One day I was talking to a friend on the phone, sharing how I was feeling and not knowing what to do, and she gave me life-changing advice. She said, just pick one thing you can do that moves you closer to your goal. Something that's in your control and that you can complete is filing for child support with the state so that you have financial support needed to take care of your son. And that's what I did. I didn't wait to have everything figured out. I picked one thing and I did it. That gave me the confidence that I needed so that I could do the next thing. And then I did that, and then the next thing. It was like a domino effect. And before I knew it, the momentum had taken over so that I could get to the point where I could make the hard decision moving on. As we wrap up today, I want you to remember this. Being stuck isn't a verdict. It's information. It's your mind and body asking for attention. It's not punishment. We did cover a lot today. We talked about why our brain is designed to keep you safe instead of comfortable. We talked about how perfectionism isn't excellence. It's fear wearing really nice clothes. We talked about how staying stuck isn't a character flaw. It's often a protection strategy. And we explored how tiny actions, not giant leaps, are what build confidence. But before we finish, I want to leave you with one more thought, because I have a feeling someone listening to this needs it. Have you ever noticed how we speak to ourselves differently than how we speak to someone that we love? Imagine your best friend called you tonight and she said, Carla, I feel stuck. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel like everyone else has their life together except me. Now, would you respond with, well, have you just considered that you're lazy? Of course not. Actually, you guys, I have a friend that might say that. I just thought of her. Her face just popped into my mind. She might actually say that, but it's not. It's just her personality. It's not because she's mean. But no, you, of course, probably wouldn't say that. You would probably say something like, well, you've been through a lot. You're doing the best you can. This season won't last forever. Everything is temporary. Or let's just figure out the next step. So why is it that we are so generous with everyone else's humanity and so stingy with our own? Maybe this week, instead of asking what's wrong with me, try asking, what would someone who loves me say right now? Because I have a feeling it would sound a whole lot kinder than the voice you've been listening to. You don't need to become a completely different person. You don't need to have everything figured out. You don't need to earn your worth before you start saving your life. You are allowed to begin exactly where you are, not because you're settling, but because you are finally telling yourself the truth. Growth doesn't begin when you become someone else. It begins the moment you stop believing you're not enough. I don't want to leave you today with 27 new habits, you guys. That is not my intention. You already have enough on your plate. So here's your challenge. I call it the 5-minute rule. Think about one thing you've been avoiding: the email, the phone call, the closet, the workout, the budget, the journal, the application, whatever it is. This week, don't promise yourself you'll finish it. Promise yourself 5 minutes. That's it. Set a timer. And when the timer goes off, you're allowed to stop with no guilt, no shame, and no pressure. Here's why this is going to work. Your brain is resisting the size of the task, not the first 5 minutes. And more often than not, once you've started, you'll keep going. Not because you're forced to, but because movement creates momentum. Even if you stop after 5 minutes, you kept a promise to yourself. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, trust grows, confidence grows, momentum grows. All right, so we are getting close to the end here, and I'd love for you to spend a few minutes reflecting on some journal questions sometime this week. So I am going to post them on the website at CarlaJean143.com, and I'm also going to post a short video on Instagram and YouTube about them as well, just to remind you. So look for those, go to the website, go to Instagram _CarlaJean143, or go to YouTube, CarlaJean143, and pick up those journal prompts for the week and see what can you work through. I want to leave you with something I remind myself. There is a huge difference between being stuck and being still. Being stuck feels hopeless. I know, I've been there. Being still is where growth often begins. Seeds don't sprout the moment they're planted. They're growing in ways we can't see yet. Maybe that's where you are. Maybe your roots are getting stronger. Maybe you're gathering the courage you need for what's next. Maybe you're not behind at all. Maybe you're just preparing. And maybe, just maybe, your breakthrough isn't waiting for a completely different version of you. It's waiting for this version of you to believe that you're capable of the next step. All right, that's what I have for you today. If today's episode made you laugh, snort, made you pause mid-scroll, or made you go, wow, are we related? Would you do me a favor? Go ahead and subscribe to Balance But Barely so you'll never miss an episode. If someone came to mind while you were listening, send this episode to them. Sometimes the greatest act of kindness is letting someone know that they're not the only one that's struggling. You can connect with me every day on Instagram at _CarlaJean143, where I share encouragement, behind the scenes moments, and reminders that none of us have to do this perfectly. Free guided meditations, journal prompts, wellness tools, the show notes, and additional resources. Visit CarlaJean143.com. That's CarlaJean143.com, and subscribe to my YouTube channel at CarlaJean143. Until next time, take a deep breath, drink some water, and remember, if overthinking really did burn calories, we'd all have 6-packs by now. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So we're going to have to settle for peace instead. This is Balance But Barely with CarlaJean Lundgren, and we're figuring it out together.